Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 16th episode of the Rangers Gameplan Podcast, where we discuss the week that was the New York Rangers. We're here for the Oilers' 3-0 win, the 4-3 win in overtime against Vancouver, and the 3-2 win just last night over Winnipeg. A perfect road trip, Evan.
Yeah, they swept the road trip. I think it's the first time in franchise history they won a 5+ game road trip, all of them. So, good things are happening.
I am absolutely... Because we said there is a legitimate chance that they could do that. Because you had Edmonton, who obviously had goalie problems, and apparently they also had offensive problems. Or Jonathan Quick is just not a real human. We'll talk about him in a second. And the last two games were not the prettiest, but somehow I still take confidence out of those games, despite the fact that they were ranging from mediocre to, I would downright say, a bad game against Vancouver.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, obviously starting off with Edmonton, it's definitely worth noting that McDavid did not play. So that definitely factors into it a little bit, at least, because, he's the best player in the league. However, anytime you shut out a team, especially with your backup goalie, it is impressive. And I did not sweat for a single second of that game, McDavid or not. They do have talent on that team, and Draisaitl is a guy that could put up 5 points on any given night, so it's not like they were just completely dry and without any help. They completely dominated the Oilers, I thought. They had a couple chances, or at least I should say high-quality chances, but that was it, and Jonathan Quick definitely made some really good saves. Boy, the Alberta teams are not looking great, are they? I think they're both bottom three in the league right now.
It's rough. I'll pull that up real quick, but they both have just looked shambolic. 30th and 31st.
Only the Sharks are behind them, right?
Okay, so they're last.
By the way,
Sharks
did not win a game.
They are not an NHL team, and I don't say that lightly. The Sharks might be the least bad NHL team I have ever watched.
They're they're really bad. They have 9 goals in 9 games. Like that's really really bad. I think before the season 2, when we were just babbling about random things, I asked you if that was the worst defensive core ever, and it's definitely looking like that.
They are already at negative 26 for a point differential.
Yikes! It's gonna be rough over there.
God.
They still have. I don't know what. I think about it like almost every day. I don't know why they extended Hurdle. I don't get it.
Okay.
Because that was after, long after they just said they were going to rebuild, and they were like, "Let's give them 8 years."
They have one goal in the past 3 games.
Yeah, I do not doubt it for a second. They're really bad.
That is horrifying. So outside of a team that isn't even real, they are the bottom 2 teams. And
regardless, though, obviously, I don't even want to say, because here's the thing about the Oilers, right? They could have this bad of a start, and I just think at some point during the year they're gonna get hot, and they're just gonna creep their way up the standings, and then all of a sudden nobody's gonna want to play them. Do I think they are a true contender, considering the goalie situation and just the lack of depth on the team? No, but I mean, it's kind of impossible to keep them. Yeah, it's not really possible to keep them cold for that long. The Flames, however, it's weird. It's really weird, man. I don't know. They have a good team on paper. They have a really good team on paper, in fact, and they just, I don't know.
I think
it's almost like the sky's falling there.
I think my 2 coldest takes in the past couple seasons with hockey are, I thought the Flames won the Tkachuk trade, and I thought the Laviolette deal to bring him in was just barely worth noting. I'm not looking good on those 2 things.
Everybody has those. Yeah, I mean, regardless of those teams, it's still impressive. I mean, they swept the road trip.
It's incredible.
And obviously, like I said, they did dominate the Oilers, and the Flames, I thought, played really hard. They seemed like they were really playing for something in that game. and they just shut both of those teams down regardless of where they are in the standings right now. So,
And with the Oilers especially, you have your backup in net. Jonathan Quick is insane. I understand it's early in the season and he's very well rested. I would simply sign anyone who was a Rangers fan growing up and is anywhere near the sport of hockey professionally. I think that is the I think that's the ticket. Honestly, he leads the league in saved, goal against. He's looked fantastic as the backup, and it's funny because you said unless he is God personified in net, Rangers fans are going to hate him. And
and so far he's looking like
close.
that. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the game that he lets in like 2 soft goals, and people are like, "Oh my God, he's terrible. We need another backup." We do this every year. Like once the honeymoon phase wears off with him, it's like soon as he has one bad game, people are going to be calling for to call somebody up from the Wolfpack to play goalie. We do this every single year. But he's definitely played awesome so far. I think both of his wins are on the road too.
Yeah. I mean,
And by the way, in that Oilers one, I think it was like a surprise start. I didn't really think anybody thought he was going to start that game, and he just got a shutout. So,
as one does casually, that game is the one that's somewhat unnoteworthy. I don't have too much to say. Schneider getting on the board was neat. Lafreniere had his 4th goal in that game, which is a positive. Panarin had another casual multi-point night. We're gonna.
He's on a 9-game point streak right now. He looks just absurd, and I do want to talk about that for a second because, I mean, the one thing I will say with Panarin is, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about like, oh, where was this the whole time? Like, he's always done this. He's always been this good. Like, he's the best Rangers forward in our lifetime, easily. I don't think anybody's close. The difference is he's just way more consistent now. Because I think in his career so far as a Ranger, he will have like a 3-point night, and then you won't notice him the next game. That just hasn't been the case so far. He's looked like a complete force in every single game so far. And obviously, I'm sure he's going to have a couple off nights in the season. But it's just, I think him... he's definitely not playing more freely because obviously they were not coached last year. But I just think whatever is happening with the line or something is just clearly working to an unreal extent right now. I mean, 9-game point streak, and he just every shift he looks so dominant.
For me, it's not just how it's his shot. Panarin has always had a really good shot, but for some reason has not used it. Mm-hmm. And he is finally starting to show off that, he has got one of the deadlier shots in this sport. It's not definitely as crazy, but by God, it's a confident shot. He's looked great with that. He's at 15 points already. I think
already.
He's second in the league to Jack Hughes.
Yeah, and I think Hughes has like 17 or something. I don't really know.
Last I checked, 18.
But yeah, Panarin's been ridiculous, and like you said, he's definitely shooting more. And the one thing that I actually noticed a lot last night, it's happened in just about every power play, but he's moving around on the power play much more. I feel like in the past couple of years, he would just stay, above the right circle and just stay there. And if the shot wasn't there, he's just passing it right to Fox. Like, there's been multiple times so far where he'll get the puck and he will go all the way around the offensive zone. And I think that unlocks so much because obviously this team has always had a great power play apart from the disaster that was this past playoffs. Outside of that, they've always been top 5 power play in the league, no question. But at times you could say they were very predictable. And obviously when something is working so well, there's no reason to change it, but you could tell specifically sometimes, specifically in that Devils series, they were very, very predictable. There was basically 2 options. It was the one-timer to Mika or just a direct shot from Fox to Kreider for a tip. Now, obviously, both of those things are unbelievable assets, and, Mika and Kreider are elite at those spots on the power play, but that's not to say it's not preventable from the opponent's side of things. So you have seen some times where the Rangers don't get looks whatsoever on the power play, nothing gets open. It's because everybody would stay still, and the other team knew exactly where the puck was going to go. having Panarin move all the way around and allowing the other players on the power play to shift around I think that's going to be huge. It's not like he does it every single time, but I've never really seen him do that too much the past 2 years. So that's definitely important. I mean, Kreider is probably going to score like 50 goals again this year.
Yeah,
so he's on pace for that. But yeah, I just think. And by the way, speaking of the power play, I think they have a goal in. Is it all of the games? It's at least 8.
It feels like it might be all of them. I'll double check that. I'll bring this up before I will check that real quick. The power play last year was about 23%. Obviously, it's very early to this point of the season, but it's 34 right now.
Yeah, and I don't ever see it dropping below like 20, regardless. You know, so they've been really really good this year, and the one thing, obviously, for the past little while, we've always kind of seen people debate on who should have the 5th spot on the power play. Obviously, right now it's Trocheck. Guys, I don't think it matters. I really don't. When you have the other 4 on that power play doing what they do, it's going to run through those 4 regardless.
Yeah.
And I think obviously we just had Kane and Tarasenko there. Like, for some reason, this team is 7-2. And they just swept a road trip, and I'm seeing fans like begging to change so many things. It's like, guys, just everything is working right now. Just leave it, please. Just leave it.
I would love to know how many other fan bases are 7-2 and are like, all right, here's who needs to go.
We need 4 trades by tomorrow morning. And this guy needs to be moved up on power play. Guys, I don't care. I really don't. They're 7-2. They're playing great. The power play is something that I mean, it's not shocking whatsoever because they've done this for going on like 4 years now. So it's really not shocking. But I just think they're the same but different because of that. I mean, I feel like Fox completely ran the power play in past few years, and I just think seeing Panarin be on this heater right now and just looking that confident on the power play, he's circling around the entire offensive zone and getting an assist is just like, it's just beautiful.
And we're seeing a lot of other players also with the power play move around. You've had Fox get a couple of goals near the net. I've seen him near the net even when it's not his goal to have. Mika's been working a lot more like the middle slot, which is strange to see. That was one of his goals. That was his first goal of the season, was him along the middle slot that came flying in. Panarin's moved around a lot. Kreider's in front, but I never want to see him not in front of the goaltender.
He might be the best net front guy of all time.
If he can do 50 again this year, I think you have to go with him.
The only other guy that's like put up similar numbers is Joe Pavelski, and Chris Kreider blows him out of the water. Like, statistically. So I understand I'm a fan of the team and I'm biased, but like I would like somebody to find somebody that's better at that.
He's so automatic in front of the goaltender. I also looked it up. The only game they did not have a power play goal was in Seattle, but they won 4-1. So I'm not losing sleep over that.
It does not matter.
Well, wait, did they? Okay, they only had one opportunity in that game as well. So
yes, they've still been very, very good, and I think, like you said, there's been a couple things that are just weird to see with the personnel shifting around. I think obviously when we're watching it, they will start in that classic setup they usually do, but if they don't get a look, then they shift things around, and that's not really something we saw super often. The past few years, it was if they didn't have one of the two options, they just simply wouldn't shoot the puck, and then the power play would be over. So there's a lot of improvements. It's not that the power play really needed improvements, but it's just cool to see different things happening with it. And they've also, I mean, going into the Vancouver game, they obviously basically won the game. I know it got tied after the 2 power play goals, but I just think it's very important, especially because the power play didn't look great in preseason. That obviously just none of it matters, and they just, obviously it was a little concerning just because of what happened in the playoffs with the power play, and then they just could not get anything going in the preseason. It's just cool that we can put all that behind us, because they've gotten some huge goals. They had one in Arizona game. obviously Vancouver, I believe last night as well.
Yeah.
Unless I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
so
pretty sure Kreider tied the game last night with the power play goal. Yeah.
yeah, that was
That's
when
what it
that
was.
came. Yeah, so I mean they've still been really clutch. Power play 2 has actually looked pretty good. I'll say obviously it doesn't really matter. I mean they're on the ice for like 30 seconds max.
Yep.
But I just feel like last year the second the first unit went off the ice, there was just no point in
You
even
were
watching
just
the rest of
hoping
the power
they
play.
didn't turn the puck over at the neutral zone. That's
Yeah.
all you were hoping for.
Yeah, so it's cool. Like, even if I'm not asking them to score at a super high clip, especially with the ice time it gets, but just, continue the sustained pressure. And if you don't score, that's fine, but just having it be serviceable is definitely cool. I guess, to go into that Vancouver game, it was weird. They called absolutely everything in that game.
Yeah.
There was just, like, no 5-on-5
Except
the
for
entire
one
night.
thing.
Yeah. And okay, here's the one thing I will say about it. Obviously, if the roles were reversed, we would be screaming. So I'm not going to sit here and try to make all excuses for it. But the one thing I will say is, like, when you do watch it, in slow mo, close up, it's not as egregious as it looked at first glance. Like Kreider was almost like skating away from Pedersen, and then Pedersen stuck his leg out and got tripped. Now, like I said, if that happened to the Rangers, I'd be livid. So I wouldn't even. I basically refuse to watch the replay, so I get it. But yeah, that whole night it was just there was a whole lot of penalties,
There
of
were
penalties.
12 power plays between the two teams.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. I think that might be the one game that was probably a little bit concerning out of really any of them. They just didn't really play, the way we would have liked. But I will say, Vancouver does look really, really good this year.
Yeah.
It's especially I think they've had a lot of injury problems and everything. So right now they're playing full lineup. And they do have talent on that team. They have an immense amount of talent on that team. So, if you're basically right at the end of a road trip and you're going to not play 100% and still win the game, I'm totally fine with that.
I think that was definitely the worst game on the road trip, but at the same time, we've seen a lot of games to this point, and I'm not going to try to... Allow me to try to spin this into it's actually a good thing that they looked kind of crappy. After all the games where a lot of guys lower, Lafreniere's had to do a lot, Hedel has done a lot, Schneider, Gustafsson. It was kind of nice to just have a game where the big guys actually stepped up. Like, that was a game the team as a whole did not deserve to win. But your top paid forward in Panarin, your top paid center, your top paid defenseman, your big guys that you look to carry you in a lot of ways, and also part of the leadership core, and then Shesterkin in overtime. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
For them to
oh my god.
For them to step up, and in the clutch, especially for Fox and Mika, it felt good to see. And the Fox goal was pretty darn solid. Zibanejad's goal was just chaos incarnate. I've watched that roughly 40 times, and I still don't exactly know what happened. But eventually he got it and scored.
Yeah, and
that is
obviously that was big for him to get, regardless of it being a really weird goal. But
because then
his first of the year, so
you have him immediately come back in the next game, and he's back.
Yeah.
The fact that the Rangers had started off, because I would have been 5-2 at that point without a Mika Zibanejad goal, just they're rolling on all cylinders. They look as good. This is as good a 9-game stretch as they have ever had in the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard to just not feel great about the team as a whole. I'll say one last thing about the power play, because I was going to bring this up. With Gallant, a lot of times, when the power play wasn't working, you would see him change personnel, and right now they're just changing the theory of the power play, which is a very important distinction. Mm-hmm. And you see what that does. It's no longer a weird, convoluted zombie of a power play that's trying to just circle the puck around until they give you a free goal. They're just moving around, and they're finally doing what we have begged them as a fan base to do for multiple years now, which is, hey, you have Kreider. You have Zibanejad nearby. Panarin is a rocket and is going to find the puck. Just throw it towards the net, and something is going to happen. And, hey, shocker. They're throwing it towards the net, and good things are happening.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, they're definitely changing the theory of the power play and just the team as a whole. I think, specifically when we're talking about the Vancouver game, obviously they didn't play great in it. They probably did not deserve to win that whatsoever. But you see when they don't play up to standard, they have a system to fall back on, and they have something to look at and be like, this is our standard for how we want to play. They had a tough game against Winnipeg right at the end of the road trip. I didn't think they really had their legs under them too much, very understandably so. And Connor Hellebuck is just, if you were watching that game, they probably could have scored 5 goals, the Rangers. And you could say that, it was just, a really fun goalie battle to watch, but there was a lot of saves where Hellebuck just, it's just like, oh my God, this guy's ridiculous. He seems to play really, really well against us. But you had a tight game. The only true complaint I really have is the Ehlers wraparound goal.
Oh my God.
That was just pure laziness. That is honestly the only goal they've really given up that I have a true complaint about effort or anything like that. Goals like that were just about every goal the Rangers would give up the past 2 seasons. It's just like a complete mess. It's just good to see that's not happening all the time. But it's just, we've seen it a couple times now. Like, they don't play well, in Columbus. They come out and they have a system to fall back on and look at and lock into and play well the next night. They get completely away from that in Nashville, and then they obviously have this winning streak going on now. Obviously, you're never going to have perfection for an entire season. There's going to be nights like the Vancouver game where it's very sloppy and everything like that, and especially on the road, it's just huge to be able to pull those wins out. I think honestly, last year, if last year's team with that staff plays the last 2 games, they probably lose. Just because, point. Yeah, no, absolutely no way. Like, if the team from the past 2 years didn't have their legs under them, it was over, completely over. So, regardless of everything, obviously the past couple wins weren't pretty, but it doesn't matter. We said it before, or on the last episode, this is going to be the toughest stretch that they have all season, and they won every single game. That is the toughest, road trip they will have the entire year. They get it out of the way early, and now they're 7-2, and they won all of them. Mm-hmm. So, it's absolutely massive. And like you said, it's regardless of if it's pretty or not, all that matters is the top guys just showed up when they had to, and that's all you can really ask. Like, if the team doesn't have their A game that night, you just got to ask your top guys to take over and win the game regardless of everything. And that's something else, too. The past couple years, it's either the Rangers had their elite A game or they were god-awful. There was no in-between. So we're seeing an in-between now. Obviously, the worst it's been is the Nashville game, and other than that, the nights that they haven't looked completely on firing on all cylinders, they've played a pretty good game. It's not like they're either winning 8-1 or they're losing 5-0. There's no more of that. And that's pretty much it in terms of, obviously, when we're talking about the coaching and everything, it sucks that we have to sit here and constantly talk about the how much we hated the last coach. He's no longer in our lives, but the truth of the matter is, like, this is the same team. This is the same team. The only thing that's different is the staff, basically. Obviously, you have a couple new players here and there.
It debatably got worse. Like, I don't think this is a disrespect to who they have right now, but you lose Kane and Tarasenko. Those are debatable. One of them is not debatably a Hall of Famer. Tarasenko very well could be.
Yeah.
And you lose both of them the same free agency, and you get better.
Yeah,
in every facet.
it's like I don't want to sit here and talk about Mr. Gallant every single episode for the whole year, but it's also like it's just we haven't seen this. Like these are just things that we've been begging for. I guess obviously, a lot of the positives, they just swept the road trip. We've said that a million times. It's very impressive regardless of the circumstances. Um, a lot of things just in terms of 5-on-5 and the power play and the penalty kills still been ridiculously good. All those things are looking top par right now. I just want to ask, who do you think, or where on this team do you think needs a bit of an upgrade? And I feel like we're going to lean the same direction on this, or not necessarily an upgrade. Once again, I'm not asking for them to make 7 trades when we haven't played 10 games yet. It's just what can be improved right now.
I think you have to first off bring in. That's a good question you have there. I think obviously Eichel for the fourth line is the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, no, if that doesn't happen, then everybody needs to be fired. So
the fourth line has not shown a lot in terms of offense, but they also have done everything that I could possibly want a fourth line of grinders to do. I came into the season with... I saw the fourth line the first night, and I was like, oh, they're not scoring this season. They're just there to make the other team want to die. And I've been perfectly fine with that, because they've done a good job of that. I don't know what the plus-minus is for guys like Gaudreau and Bonino, but the fourth lines look fine. If you want to make a change there, I think that's fine. But overall, I'm pretty content with the lines. Kako has looked not what I hoped for, especially because out of preseason, Kako looked fantastic. And
that's where I was gonna go.
That's
definitely.
Totally fair. The fourth line, if you could get offense there, that's fine. But also, I am 100% of the opinion, if it isn't broken, don't play around with it.
Yeah. Especially because how many years in a row have we seen fourth liners and 6 defensemen that are just legitimate liabilities to the team? Like, if I'm not noticing them or don't have anything bad to say, then don't change anything.
Like, here we go. So Pitlick he's played 2 games. I'm not going to use him. Like, VC is somehow a +3. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know where that's come from, but
he's a +3. Gaudreau's a -1. Like, I don't have an issue with that. Kako is an interesting point. And as I was talking about the fourth line, I'm like, wait a minute. I am missing the low-hanging fruit on a serious note.
Yeah.
I'll let you go first, because I have literally no idea where to go with him.
Yeah, so obviously Kako is, I feel like a lot of people are thinking about it. He just hasn't really been noticeable. I just think that is the biggest concern for me. I'm not asking him to have 18 points right now. It's just a matter of I haven't really noticed him in any of the games so far. Now, they are about to play their 10th game of the season. So I'm not trying to sit here and say Patrick Kane needs to be on this team tomorrow. I'm not a lunatic, okay? Well, that's debatable. But regardless, Kako, what I will say is I'm not going to blame solely him. The top line hasn't given me enough, personally. I don't... Just 5-on-5 speaking. Have they been bad? No. Obviously, they've been defensively responsible, but considering they are your top line, and also considering how good the second line looks, it would be a serious danger for the rest of the league if obviously the entire top 6 is just rolling. I'm not asking them to be, to have 8 points a night every single night. I know that's unrealistic. But it's just I would like to see more from them 5-on-5, and I'm not just going to single out Kako for that. Now, I think on the flip side, the way that they've had that line, systematically so far is he is the primary puck carrier. So he's not completely, absent of blame. Obviously, like I said, they are about to play their 10th game of an 82-game season. So it's not, I'm not writing him off. I'm not doing anything like that. But I think Lafreniere has taken massive steps forward. and you just haven't seen that from Kako, and it is disappointing because he did look really, really good in the preseason. But like I said, it would be entirely different if he was getting his chances and just not capitalizing.
Mhm.
The concerning part is that he just hasn't really been noticeable, like I said. So
The first line has definitely looked subpar. I think a problem that I have with it is you have three guys in Mika, Kreider, and Kako who they don't play the same game, obviously, but Kreider wants to be in front of the net, and that is where he's absolutely at his best. Kako has also come out as a pretty good net front presence, and that leaves Zibanejad, and the center usually is going to be in the center of the ice. And so you have three guys that kind of want to just bunch up directly in front of the goaltender, and they can't because if you move Mika out to a wing, now he's out of position. I think the question I'll pose to you, do you think the move to fix the first line, or at least to help it along, is internal or external? Somehow, miraculously external.
So I've
They
always
have
been
like
a big
$30
believer. Yeah,
cap
yeah.
space,
So
so they can make a
I
lot of
don't
moves.
know how they could possibly get anybody. I kind of want to pull up the exact cap space numbers right now. Because here's the thing, right? I know a lot of people do not like Blake Wheeler so far. Regardless, he hasn't been a liability to the team. He just hasn't really gotten much going. And with that being said, I think he's hit like 2 or 3 posts in the past 3 games. So he's getting some chances here and there. Keep in mind, this guy has played in one place his entire career, and he's been in the top 6 his entire career, and this is his first time really with big change. So if it takes more than 9 games for him to get rolling, I think that's perfectly understandable. Like, this is still very, very early on. I think I think you might give it like, I mean, because here's the thing: as long as they keep winning, I do not change anything.
Yep.
But I think the next time you have like an ugly loss, where let's say they only score one goal, I think you might just throw Blake Wheeler on the top line just to see what happens.
I think
Just to see.
I think that's definitely a move worth looking into. Wheeler is too good of a player to not do well, and he is very much Kreider has scored only goals his entire career. He has never gotten a single assist in his entire life. And I feel like that is true in my heart, regardless of what it says on the piece of paper in front of me. Mika is also a big goal guy. I thought potentially with Kako there, he was probably going to have a lot more assists, but that just has not worked. Wheeler has been pretty much an assist guy for a long time. He's definitely more so a playmaker, especially at this point of his life. And I think if you have him on the top line, Mika and Kreider, I've praised Mika defensively for as long as we have made videos here. I think they could help him out with his lack of speed at this point. If he's staying a little closer to the blue line and not having to move all the way up and letting those guys work behind the net for him defensively, or I guess offensively attacking, and he's not caught pinching, I think that could even help his defense out a little bit, where he has a bit of a head start if it goes the other way. I think it makes too much sense, and I feel bad relegating Kako to the third line in theory, but at the same time, you have Trocheck in the third line, and he's, what, like a $6 million third line center now? That's a lot of fun. We're not going to. They're 7-2. We're not going to complain about that. Will Coley has also looked very solid at this point. I think that could. Kako,
Yeah, I think he's gotten robbed a few times. Specifically last night, he had 1 or 2 really good shots that got robbed.
Yeah.
So
I think that
he could have quite a few more goals.
I think that definitely could end up working pretty well if you move them around there. I did pull up the cap number for the Rangers. They have $675,000 in cap space now. So you could make a league minimum move.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
people
And now,
are,
obviously you can do all sorts of crazy things with the cap, as we've seen last year.
Yep.
So that could change. Now, here's the thing. Do not play shorthanded for a month and a half just to bring someone in. Please do not do that again. Please, please, please don't do that
You
again.
didn't enjoy that.
Don't have guys that just aren't allowed to take a shift because you need to bring in a guy. Like, don't do any of that. But now that's not my job to figure out how they could get more cap space. But
Isn't it
I think
obvious? Just simply trade Barkley Gaudreau for 5 first-round picks and unload all of the cap space. It's not that hard, bud.
yeah, I've seen that quite a few times on Twitter so far. Today, actually, after they just swept a road trip. Anyway, regardless, I think, like you said before, if you wanted to make a change on the fourth line, obviously, if you want to move the lineup around internally, you can do that because you're kind of shifting, Pitlick and Vesey.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, when we start going into trade talks, Gaudreau is the top trade candidate for things like that. And that does not. Go ahead.
You're getting nothing for him in a trade. Is my
Yeah, no, like you're not getting anything for him. Obviously, he makes too much money. We know that. Now, here's the thing. I don't have an issue with him as a player. I don't. I mean, he's a fourth line guy that's great at killing penalties, and he's physical, and he is a fourth liner. That's all I could really say. Like I don't have issues with him. But if you can move him, I'm perfectly fine with it, especially because you have Tyler Pitlick on the team already.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable with Tyler Pitlick being on the fourth line than, let's say, like a Johnny Brodzinski. That is, so I think that goes without saying. Now, when we're talking about these things, like I said, it's if they're winning, I do not want to change anything, and I seriously doubt that they would change anything because we actually have a smart coaching staff now. But let's, there's going to be some ugly games. That's just the nature of it, and I think you try Blake Wheeler up there. The one thing, there's going to be times this year where the lack of depth is going to show, and I'm careful saying that because I do really like this lineup. But at a certain point, when you start to play these really, really good teams, you're gonna need a little bit more. So the one thing I will say, and now I'm sick and tired of talking about it, but Patrick Kane, I do think, like, if you were to move the cap around and do whatever, and most importantly, if this team keeps going on the trajectory that they are currently at, I think he will be a Ranger. Again, that's just, I don't think there's any way around that. I don't want to sit here and talk about Patrick Kane for goddamn 20 minutes. Like I said, I'm kind of sick of talking about it. But let's say we're just not getting anything out of the right wing, up and down the lineup,
right,
and this team keeps winning. If this was the only team he wanted to play for last year, he's going to want to do it again. It's just that simple. Now, I don't think he would sign for $800K, but if you can throw like $1 million at him, find a way to do that, I think he will be a New York Ranger. Now, they're 7-2, and I don't want to sit here and talk about, we need Patrick Kane. I really don't want to do that.
He's our only hope.
But it's just, it is not far-fetched because he literally demanded the Blackhawks to trade him only to New York last year, and that's the only reason that trade happened. And if this team keeps looking like this, he will tell the Rangers, like, hey, like, if you can figure it out, I will sign there. Because I think as of right now, the current rumor is us, Buffalo, and the Red Wings. Now, I don't see a world where he actively chooses either one of those two teams unless all we can offer him is $600,000. That's the only way that he's like, nah, I really don't want to do that. But
can you imagine
that's just an option.
Can you imagine walking to Patrick Kane?
Yeah, I mean, if he signed here for $600K, we would get investigated. It's that simple. So
you just hear someone, well, that's what Blake Wheeler did. They're the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really don't want to sit here and talk about Patrick Kane forever. Here's the thing, though. I feel like everybody is super, super diehard one way or the other on that topic, and I feel like it is a very sensitive topic for a lot of Rangers fans. I'm somewhat in the middle on it. Now, I do speak with a good amount of bias because Patrick Kane is one of my favorite athletes, period, of all time. Hockey players ever, it goes Hank and then him. So there's always going to be a large amount of bias when I'm talking about that guy. The day we traded for him was like my Stanley Cup. So it was just cool to see him put the uniform on. That's it. Now, with that being said, I will never say straight up no to him. But I just, like I said, if you gotta play with one man short in the lineup and then tell three guys they can't take a shift because you're bringing him in, don't do that again. Don't, because that's when the season took a huge downward spiral. So please do not do that again.
Yeah.
But listen, like, even if it's not him, the fact of the matter is, like, if you're getting absolutely nothing on the right side for a good chunk of the season, you're gonna have to bring someone in. You cannot have absolutely zero production on the right wing. You can't. I mean, now with that being said, Lafreniere's looked really good, so it's not like we're completely bone dry on that side, but Kako's got to give me something, and Blake Wheeler, he's a third line guy and he's making 800K. So like I said, unless he puts up 4 points on the season, it's a good signing.
Yep.
Regardless.
I think even
so
if he puts up 4 just grinds, screw it.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, obviously the big, the big name move is Patrick Kane again.
Yep.
But like I said, it's not far fetched, but it doesn't need to happen. And regardless if it is him or not, it's somebody will be brought in if the right wing just doesn't produce like they haven't really so far. So we'll see. Like I said, they're 7-2. They are 7-2. So I'm not really going to sit here and speculate all these things when there's no reason to right now. But just and I guess something I just thought of while bringing all this up is, obviously so far in the season it's been a lot of. Now every game's important. But obviously we've played a lot of non-divisional opponents. We have not played a single divisional opponent so far. Thursday we play Carolina. Woo! So that is our first measuring stick game. I think a couple weeks ago I was talking about that. Like, it kind of sucked that we didn't really have a measuring stick game for a good amount of time. But now it's here, right? So we played a lot of, the Flames and Kraken and all that stuff that doesn't really matter for the big picture. Now, obviously, that comes into play. So when we're talking about all these things, it's, you're going to have to beat these teams. And positionally, you got to see where you stack up against some of these teams. Carolina hasn't looked great this year, so we'll see. Obviously, it's a team that I'm confident they could beat in a playoff series if it started tomorrow. I don't really think there's much debating that. But regardless, it's going to be us, them, and the Devils all season long and into the playoffs. So these games are big. And like I said, if they have like an ugly game and they only score 1 goal and they just look dead offensively, you got to start thinking about these things.
Right.
Like, I know a lot of people hate Patrick Kane and all these things, but if it's possible, and like I said, if you put up stinkers against divisional opponents and you can't score, you got to think about something. Even if you trade for like Frank Vetrano again.
Oh
I'm not saying it has to be Patrick Kane, but just like something would have to happen if that's the case.
I'll give a spiel on the Patrick Kane thing, if I might, which I think a lot of people are getting lost in the thought of like, oh, he's going to come in and be the Kane we hoped he was going to be last year because he's not injured, and seemingly ignore the fact that he is 37, 36, I want to say, around there.
Is he really? Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it, but
but like, he's not going to be the Kane. He's 34. I was way off. Jeez Louise. Okay.
It feels like he's like 36. I would have believed just about anything that Google told me. So.
Yeah. But with Patrick Kane, I think expectation is always the gateway to disappointment. I think he could be very solid. I don't think he's going to put up, obviously, now he wouldn't because he's missed 9 games. I don't think he'd be a 30-goal pace. I think also, though, with that first line, Mika and Kreider are big goal guys. You put Mr. Playmaker himself, Patrick Kane, there. I think it makes a little too much sense. You're going to bring someone in. Like, you are a contending team in the NHL. Every single contending team is going to make a move at the deadline. It's just, it's not a sport like football where it's like, the Jaguars have made a big splash and brought in a backup kicker at the deadline.
Yeah.
Everyone is making a move. That's just how this works. If you can go get Patrick Kane for $1 million, Maybe you do some magic with the cap and you get him for 2 if you really can clear up that much space to bring him in. And again, you said it perfectly. He held the Blackhawks captive until they gave him to us for nothing.
Yeah,
it wasn't a matter of like, oh, here's a list of teams I'd like to go to, the Rangers, the Jets, the blah, blah, blah. It was, I'm going to New York. That end of story. It's done.
That's it. Yeah. And you're gonna get nothing for me. Yeah, we've already gone over all of that.
Yeah.
I think like you said, it feels like we're back in last season, and I'm getting like, I'm just, it's like freaking me out talking about this. I have like PTSD. But here's the thing, like you said, if they could bring him in for $1 million, just find a way to do that. Regardless of how you feel about him as a person, which I understand all of those things, and regardless of how you feel about how he fit on the team last year, the fact of the matter is his floor as a player is like 50 points.
Yep.
Right? So now when you look at Kakko, he hasn't gotten near that, right? So if he, if Kakko doesn't start to trend upwards towards that, you have to think about it. I'm not trying to sit here and sound like a Patrick Kane fanboy, and I know some people absolutely despise him for some reason, just based on the performance last year, because some people are acting like he's like the reason we lost the playoff series, which is just mind-boggling to me. He was like, did he lead the team in points? He was like second, I think, behind Kreider. Yeah, so it's just like I said, his absolute floor, the bare minimum he's going to give you is probably 50 points, even if like he only plays 60 games. Mm-hmm. That's, I mean, somewhere around there. Like it's going to be at least like 40 or 50. So if you're not getting anything out of the right wing, you have to think about it. I'm not saying it must happen. I'm not asking them to bend over backwards with the salary cap and do all these things with the lineup to make it happen, but you have to think about it. If that's where things are trending, that's just the way it is.
I think the biggest reason why I would be on board with it is you look at in 2021-22, you have to make a couple of big trades. You go out and get Kopp, you go out and get Vetrano, you go out and get Tyler Mott for the first time. They gave up a lot to go do all that. And then this past season, they give up a lot to go get Tarasenko and Kane and Mott a second time. If you have the ability to go make a legitimately good move that is going to help your team, and that a player like Kane, that is a deadline acquisition, at point blank.
Yeah.
Even at 34, even in his decline, that is still a deadline acquisition. If you can do that and you're not giving up draft capital, which you desperately need if you would like to have a window that isn't just slamming shut in a few years, why would you not do that? Beyond anything else, beyond the play, you're getting a good player. Why? For nothing. You're getting him for money. You're not having to deal with the stupid this pick, that pick, or conditional. You're not having to think, okay, but if we advance to this point of the playoffs, how is that going to affect the draft? He's free, in essence, and it makes too much sense. I don't think it's, at this moment, dire. Like, I'm not going to be refreshing Twitter endlessly, or X, or whatever you want to call it, Bird app, to see if he becomes a Ranger tomorrow, because I don't think he would, obviously, but I can't think of a valid reason as to why that isn't the clear-cut move, and I think Drury has to have that in the back of his mind. I think Kane has to have that in the back of his mind, because Detroit looks fine. They look pretty good, I would even say. The Sabres have not gotten off to the hardest start, if I'm not mistaken, but I genuinely think that is a playoff team. Because I look around it, the Islanders are not going to be where they are come the end of it. I don't believe Montreal is sustainable the way they are.
Shot. Absolutely no shot,
The Caps, the Phillies, the Senators, they are falling off. I genuinely think the Sabres are going to fight for a team. If no other reason than I think Tage Thompson will single-handedly drag them to that.
No, they're definitely a pretty good team. Now, obviously when I said before, like, I'm very biased in the sense that I do think he would pick us over Detroit and the Sabres. Now, that is all rumors. There could be many more teams than that. But I just think here's the fact of the matter. Patrick Kane is currently waiting to see who looks the strongest. The guy is chasing another cup. It's that he blatantly said that last year. So, like I said, if the Rangers keep on this upward trajectory and they still continue to look this good, he will want to come here.
Yeah.
And like even if it's not the only team he wants to go to, he will reach out to the Rangers and say, I'm open to coming back if they continue to look this good. That's just the way it is. So, like I said, I'm getting a little bit creeped out just based on all this because it's like last year we were obviously talking about all this, and now we're back at it for
Groundhog
basically
Day
like
is
no
hitting
reason.
hard.
Yeah, so it's it is what it is. But like I said, when you're gonna have some games this month where you're playing some divisional opponents, and like I said, they're measuring stick games. You're gonna have to see where you stack up. And if you're not getting anything out of Kako or the entire right wing the way you would like to, you have to think about something. It doesn't have to be him, but the main reason that he is a top candidate is because obviously we've talked endlessly about the success he's had, and everybody knows the success he's had and everything like that. But also, he would basically be free. He's not asking for a 7-year deal for $800 million. He just wants another cup, and he's currently just waiting that out. So if it can happen, go do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't need to. Regardless, he was not a liability last year. I don't really know why people are making it seem that way. Honestly, the worst he's looked is probably the Game 7, and that's because the Rangers were getting steamrolled, and he had to try to make plays to dig out of a multi-goal deficit. So when I'm seeing people post these clips from Game 7 of him turning the puck over, listen, they were fighting for their season, or in quotes fighting, because we're not even going to talk about all that again. But that's literally the worst game he's played. That's it. Outside of that, he was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I agree with pretty much everything. Are we good on the Kane thing? Because I have one last point to bring up before we look at the next few games.
Yeah, I'm good.
I don't know that it's even a thing that we can discuss too much outside of just that's not what you want to see. The top pairs, I don't feel great through the first 9 games. I thought the goal last night
I almost wanted to ignore it, but yeah, I'm not too keen on them so far.
I thought the goal last night was horrifyingly bad. Mm-hmm. I love Lingard, and I've gone to bat for him quite a bit. What?
Yeah, that was really, really, really bad. Fox and Lindgren, I think the past 2 games, they've definitely looked pretty bad, for sure. Right. There's no other way to spin that. Now, I have no doubt in my mind they will figure it out. There's just absolutely no way that they don't. But it's just, it's early, and obviously they're playing on the road, and those guys are playing a whole lot of ice time. So if they were a little tired the past 2 games and not exactly on it, I'm okay with that. However, it hasn't been the first time we've seen a couple Adam Fox mishaps so far this season. Now, I love him, and he is obviously an elite player in this league. He currently leads defensemen in points. Mm-hmm. I think that still stands right now. But, just defensively, he hasn't quite looked up to standard. Now, has he been terrible? Has Lindgren been terrible? No. But, like you said, that goal last night, that was, you definitely don't want to see that out of your top pair. Now, that's just about all the negatives that I have. Kako hasn't looked great, and I would like to see the top pair look the way that we expect them to.
This is incredible.
But other than that, they've played very well. So
yeah, we are getting very nitpicky. The top pair allowed a bad goal and a win.
And it's either we sit here and we try to just say that the Rangers are winning the cup and say nothing else for an hour, or we it's either we say, just talk about that for an hour, or we actually try to, nitpick and get very nitpicky with some things. So that's all that's happening. We're not trying to sit here and be like Debbie Downers about the situation. They're like I've said it probably 14 times so far. They are 7-2.
Yeah.
So it's just that, either we sit here and be the most arrogant fans in the world and say there's no negatives, or we actually try to nitpick things. That's all that's happening. Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be fine. It's just definitely been a little bit concerning for sure. The one thing I will say though is the the penalty that Lindgren had last night.
That's
Listen, I understand the ref had a very weird angle on it. If I was standing where the ref is, I would have called that a trip as well. But why is that not reviewable? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. Anything, they should do it like the NFL, where like anything within the last few minutes of the game is reviewable. That's how it should be. Or honestly, if you want to challenge a penalty, I'm cool with that. Like, maybe not all of them. If you want to just go like the third period or something, I'm cool with that. I don't know, but they got to figure something out because,
I think.
Oh man, that was just not a penalty.
There's a lot of things that I think what got me the most on that penalty is refs talk about, I don't want to make a call that affects the game. You're giving a team a power play in the last 20 seconds going into overtime of a tie game. Yeah. And your reasoning is, oh, it's because I couldn't see what happened. That's such a
if you can't see what happened, you don't put your arm up. It's pretty simple.
One thing that gets me, I think the easiest way to do that is penalties have every single penalty in every single game. It is just a 30-second review where the ref looks it over. It's automatic. There is no challenging. There is nothing like that. They skate over when they call it. They say what it is. They say ruling on the ice is trip. They skate over, look at the iPad, go back. That is the rule. Team blank gets the power play. That's it. If you can't tell that it was or wasn't in 30 seconds, call on the ice. Good. That's fine. But in a case like that where you could easily just go over and be like, oh, he didn't touch him. My bad.
Yeah, it's just like, and it's not even just the NHL. I mean, it's just with all the technology we have in all these sports, it's just there's certain things that are so preventable, and we're not. There's so many things I could say about baseball and football. Yeah, that's we're not going to sit here and talk about the MLB strike zone on a Rangers podcast, but that's definitely a very good example. It's just like the technology we have. It's just I don't know why these things are not being put into place. The thing that gets me too is like when you ask these commissioners why they're not being put in place, they try to say that it like can't be implemented overnight, and I don't agree with that. I really don't.
You can change a rule. You can change a rule on the fly.
Yeah, like if you're telling me that a ref can't skate over and look over a replay within 30 seconds overnight, like you can't just implement that overnight, you're just lying. Like you just it's that simple. Yeah, I mean it obviously it doesn't matter now, but it's just like that definitely frustrated me.
It's fascinating because the commissioner will say, we don't want to implement it overnight, or you get the fun, we don't want to change pace of play, as we go for a 7-minute offside review.
Yeah.
To see if he was a millimeter offside, which is not, I understand this is a total, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole for a split second before we get to the upcoming few games. I understand why offside existed. It's because Matt Duchene was offside by roughly 70 feet in one game back in like 2010, and that's super neat. And I understand that there are a lot of goals now that are technically offside, and I sound like an idiot when I say it. Can we just... I understand he's offside. The spirit of offside is not what this is about.
Yeah.
And can we, in some cases, be like, look, I don't care. I understand that he is offside by 3 inches. He was moving the opposite direction. He was moving out of the zone. If anything, he hurt his chances with this play. It's a goal. I don't care.
Yeah, that's definitely a whole other discussion. But yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I think there's so many things with this league that can be talked about.
Unserious.
Yeah, I guess before we go way too far off track, obviously they play the Canes tomorrow, or no, Thursday.
Yes.
We're recording this on Halloween right now, so Thursday I will be in the building for that game.
Woo!
So I would very much like to see them not put up a stinker.
That'd be great.
Please, I just please. Um, by the way, now this is a little bit off topic, but it's also not really. If you guys haven't used TickPick for tickets, I strongly recommend you do. It's not many people have. Well, usually when I bring it up, people haven't heard of it. It is 100% legit. It's like I believe the parent company is Ticketmaster, because when I go to transfer the tickets from my email, it brings me to Ticketmaster. Mm-hmm. But the TickPick app itself doesn't have any fees. Literally like $0, 0 cents in fees for tickets. And I just want to put that out there because this is about to be my 6th sporting event using it. It's like 100% legit, like I said. But you save a lot of money. Because ever since I discovered that, I'm going to be going to a lot more Rangers games because the tickets are already expensive as it is. But when you have to pay like $40 in fees on top of it, then it's like, all right, I'm just not going. But tomorrow I got like pretty good I keep saying tomorrow. Thursday I got pretty good seats for 170. So it's definitely not bad. Anyway, back to everything else. I just wanted people to know about that.
Funnily enough, I also fell in love with that going to a couple of Rays games over the regular season.
Tomorrow I'm in section 104 for 170 and absolutely no fees. So
it's a totally different thing because it's baseball and people don't go to Rays games. I got into 2 Rays games for like $25 in total. It was stupid.
Yeah, and
it was...
like I said, it's definitely a game changer because you're not paying anything else. The only other thing I'm paying is the train ticket, which is like $18, but that's it. So I would strongly recommend using it. It is 100% legit. I cannot stress that enough because a lot of my friends refuse to use it just because they haven't heard of it, and that's understandable. Like I'm not gonna,
fair,
but just from my experience, this is about to be my, like I said, 6th event using it, and I've had no issues. It's 100% legit. So, anyway, let's talk about the Carolina Hurricanes. They're interesting. They're very, very interesting. I don't know what their exact line for line lineup looks like on paper.
Find it pretty quick. I'll go to Money Puck.
Because I would like to just see. Because I don't think there's any debating. They're not as scary this year. Obviously, it's early, and it's not like they haven't won a game or anything. Like, they're not terrible, but I'm just not, like, deathly afraid of them. Even though we've had success, everybody was still scared of them, so.
I see Bunting, Kakanyemi, Natchez, Martin Axel Fast. Hey! Svechnikov, Drury, Nosen, and Teravainen, Aho, Jarvis.
Okay.
But you do get to have fun because the defensive pairs are Slave and Burns, which one of those players is good. And one of them was good not long ago. But then you have Brady Shea and Tony DeAngelo on the second pair.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Two players
that should be fun.
2 players who never played defense for 1 second while playing in front of Henrik Lundqvist. I'm sure that Mr. Frederick Anderson just adores having them in front of him.
Yeah.
And Orlov Chatfield as a third pair.
By the way, yes, Slavin is dealing with something, if I'm not mistaken. Unless I'm thinking, or is it Brett Pesce?
I don't know.
Something like that is going on with them.
I haven't heard anything with Slavin.
I think it might be Pesce, but I'm not sure.
Does Michael Bunting have a point yet this season?
I think so. I think he scored last night or one of these games.
Okay, 8 points. He's not doing too bad. Good for Michael Bunting.
Yeah. So I mean, they are still a pretty good team. I'm just not necessarily, obviously terrified of them. I said,
waking in my boots anymore. Like last year, I thought they were a powerhouse until the Florida Panthers absolutely dispatched them.
Yeah.
What the hell was that, by the way? Like, they've fallen so back down. What on Christ's earth?
I don't know. It's definitely interesting. Isn't Brendan Lemieux somewhere in that lineup?
God,
Right?
is he? I'll check that real quick.
Because the only reason I don't know if he plays every night for them, but I did see one pretty dirty hit from him against
No!
Seattle. Yeah, hey, that's so unlike him. I
Our,
saw that
Brendan
hit.
Lemieux.
I saw that hit and I was like, oh, he's on the Canes. But that's the only reason I'm bringing that up. I don't know if he plays like every night for them or not, but
Played a couple nights ago. Played in their OT win.
oh wow, I'm sure he was a key contributor. He's like really good.
He has 1 point. It
yeah,
is a goal,
so obviously, like I said, they're just I feel pretty good about it, or at least I don't want to jinx anything, especially because I'm going to it. And now if I have to see the Rangers just get blown out after saying all these things
you're
while
so
I
excited
take 100,
to watch. I don't even know who their tandem is. Antti Ranta. Can't wait to see him. The Antti Ranta revenge game is going to go so unbelievably hard.
Yeah, I want to look up. I know somebody on that team is dealing with something, and it seems like pretty severe. Because I saw something. It's one of their defensemen. It's either Slavin or Pesci. Injury news.
So I didn't see him on the money puck chart. So it very well could be Pesci.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, hold on. Because if so, that is definitely a pretty big blow. Yeah, Brad Pesci out 2 to 4 weeks with lower body injury.
Oof.
But the one thing that I find a little just interesting is Brindamore was asked about it, and he was saying that he was hopeful that it was like a day-to-day, week-to-week thing, and he straight up said like it's not good. So I don't know what that means. And now I'm not trying to sit here and pray that he's out for the season or anything, but when we're just talking about the standings, if they lose him, that's a huge blow, regardless. Yeah. So obviously, I wouldn't expect them to be, firing on all cylinders until he's back. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to sit here and be like, oh yes, he tore his meniscus. No, like I'm not trying to do that. But that is definitely a pretty big blow for them. So we'll see. I don't know how good their goalies are playing this year. I'd assume not great because it's Freddie Anderson. But
are you going to disrespect Rangers legend Antti Ranta?
Hey, listen. I love him, but he's not. We saw it in the playoff series. He lets in some squeakers.
So Frederik Andersen leads the team in save percentage at .888.
Oh, awesome!
And
That's that. Wow, what a season!
Ranta is a close second at .867. And you have Peter Kochetkov, who is in third place, has played.
Didn't they loan him to the Lightning? I saw that somewhere. It might have been for a couple games, but something happened with him.
He is rocking a .836. Those are real numbers. I'm sorry. How do you not have one who's at least an .890? I don't want to sound mean, but jeez, have they already played 3 shootouts? Wait a minute.
That's odd.
Because I see that it says Anderson's faced 9 shootout attempts. Have they already been to OT win? Oh, so that must have just went crazy. Holy shit.
Yeah, okay, so they just had the one really long one? Oh my god.
They had 1 9-round shootout. Holy.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, I feel good about them, especially because their goalies are not. I mean, it's not shocking. Let's be serious here. Like, I'm not really scared of their goalies, but I also just think as a whole, they haven't been as great. Obviously, Carolina Thursday, Saturday you have Minnesota, which I think is pretty interesting because they haven't really played too well against them recently. And then you have Detroit. Now, I haven't followed Detroit too closely this year, but they're not bad if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're looking pretty solid. I want to say they're second in the Atlantic. Yeah, second in the Atlantic.
And then Minnesota again. Yeah, so they're definitely looking pretty good. That's definitely a game you can't write off. I think we would probably be back on here like Wednesday or
That
something
sounds
like that.
about right.
Just being that they play Detroit next Tuesday, so I think
Yeah.
that'll just be how it shakes out. So I guess
Yeah.
obviously those three, so Carolina, Minnesota, Detroit. You would like to see them keep. If you lose one of them, that's okay. I'm cool with that, especially being that you are where you are right now. I would just tomorrow. Or I keep saying tomorrow. I'm like excited to go to this game, and it's not tomorrow. The game against Carolina is massive. Regardless, that is the first divisional game, and you would definitely like to play really, really, really well against them. You're back at home too, so that's big.
Yeah. My whole theory with this, I would be the least devastated to get goalied by Marc-Andre Fleury. So if you're going to lose one of these 3 games, I would be the least upset if it was that one. I would enjoy going on an 8-game winning streak.
He can definitely just have those games where he just kind of goes crazy. So, we'll see. Like I said, Carolina, I'm very excited to see how they play against them.
Yeah, that's
especially new coaching staff on our side. So, because I mean, regardless of our success against Carolina, Brendan Moore has run laps around our coaching staff, and to be quite honest, like they've outplayed us in like most of the games that we beat them. So I would like to see them actually beat them. I mean, even Panarin had like that one hat-trick game with like 4 points last year against them. Yeah, they had like 12 shots going into the third period, and he just scored a hat-trick. Like that was not like a really good game. So if they could just keep that, if they could stop doing that and keep what they're doing right now, and just kind of put them into the ground, that would be a big, big statement.
Yeah.
You play Minnesota twice in upcoming here, and then I guess the one everybody has circled is Saturday, November 18th against the New Jersey Devils. So that'll be the next big one. Wow, tickets start at $141 for that. Holy! I'm not surprised, but wow. So those are the next 3. Like I said, Carolina's the only one I'd almost call a must-win. The other 2, you wouldn't like to see them lose both, but I'm okay if you lose one. Yeah. That's all.
It's completely insane to say, no, you have to go on an 8-game winning streak. That is a big ask. So eventually you're going to fall off. I think the juice of being back in MSG is probably going to help them on Thursday. I really think the Minnesota game is the one where you probably end up having to take one.
Yeah, especially it's in Minnesota too. I would say, if you're gonna lose the one in Minnesota and then beat them at home next week. Yeah. I think that would be ideal, or just win one of them regardless. You never want to see them drop both, 2 games to any team. So, but if I had to guess, that's probably how it would shake out.
I would imagine.
And then why is the game against Detroit on TNT? That's a little weird. I guess. I mean, whatever you want to do.
I guess. But
it's just a little like I don't understand this NHL schedule because like why is the game against the Devils not on TNT? But what do I know, right? So
don't doubt the NHL that had 16
it would
games
make
in
sense,
one singular night.
The playoff rematch, a Saturday game, 7:00. You think that would be on TNT? But what do I know?
Why?
So I guess that's that's pretty much it. I don't have much else to say. Obviously, they're rolling right now, so we nitpicked a lot of things. We'll see what happens against Carolina. That's definitely a big game. But other than that, not a whole lot of complaints so far. I guess this is where the schedule, just looking at it, starts to get a little tough. So obviously, beyond these 3 games, like I said, Carolina's coming up. Devils, Pittsburgh, who's dog shit, so I don't really care. Dallas could very well give you a pretty tough game. You have Boston, who I mean, I don't know how they're good, but they're doing it. Oh my God, you play the San Jose Sharks. Listen, if the Sharks still don't have a win by that game, I'm going to be terrified because I do not.
That has loss written all over it, man. I have such
we'll see.
vibes.
Oh man, real quick. I mean, since I don't have anything else to say about the Rangers, I would just like to look up the San Jose Sharks
schedule
9 goals
and all year.
Yeah,
I did
San Jose Sharks schedule, and I would like to look at this and just see what game they
And
could
if I'm
possibly
not
win.
mistaken, what do their goaltenders look like? I don't even want to. I feel bad doing this to them.
Who even is the goalie? Is it still? Don't tell me it's
Reimer's
still
gone.
Martin Jones.
No, Reimer's
right?
gone. I can find.
Ryan Carpenter is on the team. He plays every game. By the way, I think that's interesting.
I know Thomas Hurdle. I don't know any of these people.
So okay,
Mackenzie
they play
Blackwood?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
How in the ever-loving shit did both of their goalies have an over 9 save percentage, but Carolina doesn't? Oh, wait, they're facing 1,000 shots a game. What am I thinking? Silly me.
Yeah, so they play Vancouver on Thursday, and then, the Penguins. Let's go Sharks, dude. Oh my god, that would be... I would be so annoying if they end up winning that game. That's all I'm gonna say.
Do you know the Mike Wazowski crying girl meme?
Yeah.
That's... I mean it in the very best way.
Man. Yeah, they're... I like it. And it's kind of sad, too, because it's there's not a whole lot of media coverage there. So it's they're terrible, but
they're gonna look so good in Atlanta or Houston next year. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Oh God, poor Anthony Duclair is a San Jose Shark now.
Yeah, that sucks. To go from the Stanley Cup final to the Sharks is crazy. It's really crazy.
Oh,
yeah,
poor man.
Yeah, I guess that about wraps it up. I wanted to see their schedule. They're probably gonna just get destroyed in all of these games. I mean, Tristan Jarry is the worst goalie of all time, so they might be able to squeak one out.
Can you imagine if they finish 1-81 it's against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I guess real quick before we head out, I want to see if any of the teams so far has changed your opinion about the Metro. Because for me, not really. Philly looks okay, but I'm not scared of them. Penguins are not
as
good.
Boring as ever.
And I'm also... I think they probably will be a playoff team again.
Yeah.
Just because Sorokin is very good, but I don't care.
Ilya Sorokin is ridiculous.
Yeah, but other than that, they're just not great. The Penguins have been terrible.
Oh my God! You mean adding a not good defenseman defensively didn't help them? You mean adding 97-year-old Erik Karlsson?
Yeah,
didn't work.
It's almost like that wasn't the problem with your team. It's almost you still don't have a goalie. So
man, that's crazy.
Yeah, Kyle Dubas is not really. I mean, he made a splash. He definitely hit the papers, but that's about it. So.
You mean the average? How old is their team on average? I need to find this out.
Probably I don't even know.
Age.
Because Jake Gensel isn't it's not like he's 19 or anything. He's up there a little bit, and I think he might be their youngest player.
They have 2 players under 25.
Oh wow! Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not, but
4, 6, 8, 10. I think 12 or 13 over 30.
That definitely sounds right. Yeah, and they still don't have a goalie. So,
yeah. And can I just say, Jake Gensel has the energy of a 35-year-old. I understand that he's 29, and that is mean to say because he has gone through a good bit, but he is not a normal 29-year-old player. And you have Ricard Raquel, Brian Rust, Matt Nito, immaculate name. Even if I'm mispronouncing it, that should be his name. Riley Smith. Riley Smith?
Yeah, he's there. That's wow. It's just they're so weird. That lineup is so weird.
Noel Achari, Chad Ruedel, Erik Karlsson, Lars Eller. Did that happen this year?
It had to have. It absolutely had to have. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Chris Letang, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Jeff Carter. Jeff Carter's still alive. I mean, he's not playing, but he's still alive.
Yeah, I'm just so not scared.
No, he is alive.
They will not be making the playoffs. Especially because, Crosby and Malkin have their 20-game stretch of being injured every season, so that hasn't happened yet. So that's now, like I said, I'm not begging for injuries for any other teams, but it's just like that's just the way it's been their whole career. So if they're this bad and that hasn't hit yet, I'm a little like, it's just that it's not going to be good over there.
I need to find
It hasn't been good. It's not going to be good.
I need to find the top pair for them because I think it's. I mean, Carlson's definitely on the top pair because he's that. You're paying $40 million for a defenseman or something to that equivalent. He has to be a top.
Like I just want to know if it's him and Letang or I don't know.
It is him and Pettersson. Wow.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, they're not good.
Worst expected goals on ice on the team last night.
That's so funny. Oh my god.
You mean two bad defensive defensemen aren't doing well?
They're not good. They're not good. I hate them so much. They're not good. So not scared of them. And then it's just like the Metro's probably just gonna look the exact same as it did last year. I just expect the Penguins to have way less points. So
I need you to understand that Erik Karlsson currently is a plus-minus of -1, and Erik Gustafsson is a +5.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a stat I needed to hear today. That's awesome. Yeah,
God.
so it's not good over there, and I'm excited about it.
Wait,
that's just about it. I wanted to, I didn't think you were gonna have anybody that really stood out to you in this division so far. But it seems like it's just our predictions so far are shaping up to be what we thought they would be.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, I guess other than that, like I don't have a whole lot else to say. I'm a little bit nervous for Thursday. But that's about, like, not nervous like it's a big, I mean, it's going to be their 10th game. I'm going to it. So, like, I just would like it to be fun.
Yeah.
However, the last time I was there, they did beat the Penguins 6-0, and I lost my voice.
That was fun.
Hopefully that carries over.
That again, please.
Yeah.
I think we've said more than our piece for an evening.
Yeah.
I'm pretty content. So, we'll be back probably next Wednesday to talk about the Carolina, Minnesota, and Detroit game. But as for right now, thank you all so very much for coming out to the 16th Rangers Gameplan Podcast. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking and subscribe. Hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day. And as always, go Rangers.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Go Rangers.